Hello and welcome to my class. Today I would like to discuss few concepts of language and why we learn a language, what actually language is. I've come up with this lecture as in my last class I told you that students they are getting panic. Why? Because net syllabus has been changed and they have added a few things. So I would like to say to NET and SET students that do not panic. It is very easy, and that 20% syllabus that have been added is not that difficult that we are looking at it and thinking, oh God, how we are going to do that. So I'm bringing up with those topics that they have added so that you can easily go through those topics. It is not that you have to take some book or especially you have to go and join some coaching for that, right? You can easily, I always say in my lectures that if you have a habit of reading, if you really want to qualify something like UGC NET or your set, then you have to read more and more. English literature is a subject where if you will start reading it, you have to love literature, then only you can know everything, and you should know the history of these things so that you know basic. When you know the basics, then you can qualify anything. So the very first thing today that we will start with our language and its concepts. What language is based on? See, I have given you in this picture that there are beliefs, there are priorities, there are values, there are culture. So why we learn a language? It depends on understanding, adaptability, appreciation. Everything is covered in this language. So language, at the end of this lecture you will realize that language plays a very important role in our life, and without language, we are nothing. Human beings are nothing. So, moving on, what language is. Now, what is language? A language is a set, finite or infinite, of sentences, each finite in length and constructed out of a finite set of elements. This definition was given by Noam Chomsky. That was given in 1957. Here Noam Chomsky meant he wanted to convey through this definition that each sentence has a structure, and human brain is so competent, or you can say they have the ability to construct different sentences, and they are so productive that even a child at any time can produce a sentence that has never been said or heard, right? So language is something what we look at, that each sentence has a structure, right? Now, who was Noam Chomsky? He was an American linguist, a philosopher, scientist. He was called the father of modern linguistics. His main areas were linguistics, philosophy of language and mind, and he developed a theory of transformational grammar. Why I told you about Noam Chomsky? Because whenever we heard about some person or we are reading about his definition, so we should at least know his introduction, that who Noam Chomsky was, because he was a great linguistics, right? Now, if you see, he has also given, I have given a picture in this. Last line you see, all natural languages in their spoken or written form are languages in this sense. Every language that is there where we speak and write. There are different forms of languages. So there are different languages in India. So he's telling about the natural languages that are spoken or written, right? Now we come to the concept of language. So the concept of language is based on speaking, listening, writing and reading. Now when we talk about the concept of language, let's hear about some more things that people said about language. Some people said that it is symbol based. This definition was actually by Robbins. He said that it is symbol based and it is purely arbitrary convention of our mind, and this can be changed or modified according to the need of speaker. It depends on the condition and the needs of the speaker. Now he gave an example of pen. He said that why we write pen as pen, pen, and not NEP, or why not EPN? Because this is our convention that we have learned from childhood, and now this convention is being here in our mind, and now we know that no, PEN is only pen and we cannot write it as NEP. But this is our convention, right? It is not so. This was said by Robbins. Few said that language is about communicating ideas, and few said that we interact through different languages, right? So brings the concept of language, right? Now speaking and listening, they play a major role, because whenever we start something with, we start with our speech and the other person listens to it. So these two play a major role, and later comes the writing and reading. Now if you will see in this present slide, I have covered everything. If you know the definition of language and if you know the concept, you will come to know of its characteristics automatically. I have mentioned every characteristic in one line, and I've tried to explain every characteristics through pictures, because there is a nature of human being that they learn through pictures easily than something written. Because why? Mind starts taking a burden that, oh God, I have to mug up this. No, you don't have to mug up any definition. If you are reading something, you should know what Noam Chomsky said. His sense was, in his definition, what he said, his main sense was that there is a structure in every sentence, right? So we need not mug up this definition, because we have to, don't have to write this definition. We just have to understand everything. So now we should move on to something and never get confused between a language and linguistics, because language is a system which is based on different sounds and gestures where we use words and sentences, whereas linguistics is something, a scientific study of human language where it is observed and then they describe it accurately. So do not get confused between those. So this lecture is very simple but very important from net and set point of view. This is important for every student who is doing English literature. Or this is for graduation or post graduation. Every student should know all these things, right? Now moving on with the characteristic. The very first characteristic we see here in the right hand side, mode of communication. Now I have given three pictures. The very first picture represents the mode of communication, where first person talks to second person, and if there are more people, you can talk to others. Like when a teacher takes a lecture, so it is heard by many students. It is also a mode of communication. The present lecture that I am giving, it is also a mode of communication, so that I can give my knowledge through this YouTube lectures to all of you who need it, right? So this is also mode of communication. Now when we talk about mode of communication, a means of communication, through communication we talk about ideas, emotions, beliefs, or we tell about our feelings. With this communication, many things are there like gestures, symbols, and if we want to know that where some places, we find it on maps. Communication is also in the form of dance. Through dance also and through music also people communicate. So this is also kind of mode of communication. And from generation to generations, if we talk about our grandparents, we have learned, there is a development of human, and we have learned those cultures from them. So if we talk about language, a language is ubiquitous, that is omnipresent, that is, it is present everywhere. Now I've told you three words through this where you can learn your vocabulary too: ubiquitous, omnipresent, and present everywhere. The meaning is same but words are different. So through this you will learn your vocabulary too, right? Please note down the words that I tell you. It is ubiquitous. Okay. Now when we talk of mode of communication, there is one thing that comes in our mind, that is animal communication is limited. That means it is only human beings that have an opportunity, that have that they can speak and tell everything they want to, right? So we can say it is unlimited communication, right? Now moving on with the second characteristic, that is language is erratic. When we talk about erratic, again I will say it is arbitrary, that I told you, that convention based, right? Now it is arbitrary as it carries no relation between words of language and their meaning. It is not important that the word of language and their meaning are similar. For example, there is a word woman that we say in English, स्त्री in Hindi, and औरत in Urdu. So these selection of words, जो इसमें selection हुए हैं words के, they are purely arbitrary, right? So we say language is arbitrary. Now there is a picture of arbitrariness I have given you because there in language it is not entirely arbitrary. There are certain words are motivated. So you can read this and you can know this, right? Now we have the third characteristic, that it is a system of systems. That means it follows a structure. It is not nebulous. That means it is not disorganized. It is not a chaotic combination, but it is a well-established and arranged order as to make a meaningful sentence. So it have a proper and well-established structure so that it can make a meaningful sentence. Now here you can see there are two levels, that is phonological and syntactical. So phonology, lexis, grammar, morphology, everything comes into this system. Now these are few linguistics things. You can know the meaning, but you need not go into a description, right? Phonology is mainly that it helps you to improve your pronunciation. Sound of a language is your language. Lexis, that is, it is concerned about vocabulary words. ये general चीजें हैं, we should know about them. Grammar, as I told you, if there are some words, you should know what they are. Grammar, it helps you to know how to make sentences. And morphology, it is a combination of words, structure, where we make, there are two words, and जैसे हम कहते हैं disappointed, disappointed. So this is completely based on morphology, prefixes and suffixes that we read about. Now moving on to the characteristics. The characteristics is, it is primarily vocal. Now you see three pictures. It will tell you everything. The very first picture of a child, he's with a mic, if you can see, right? It is primarily vocal. Why primarily vocal? As we say that when we were childs, that means we were in our primary age. What we first learned, something we used to speak. Yes, every people, they will come and tell you say ma or something like that. So first what we learned, that was vocal. We learned through our speaking. So speaking is first, and then later comes the writing. What writing is? It is a graphical representation of sounds. There were many linguists who said that speech is primary and writing is secondary. This was said by Ferdinand de Saussure. He was also a linguist, one of the greatest linguists. So in a child, he learns to speak first, as I told you. When we say writing books, there were earlier, if we see, uh, today also people write book, but now we don't go to library and sit for hours, but we download that book if there is an ebook, or we find something here in Google or in YouTube. So this is a development that is growing and growing. Earlier we did not have those computers or gadgets like mobiles or video conferencing. Now we see, if you see the political things, if our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji have to go anywhere and he cannot go, he can talk through video. That is video conferencing. There are people sitting in a meeting and he is talking through that video, right? So we have developed like that. But this is also vocal, right? We are speaking. We don't have anything in writing. Now we have the next characteristic, that is, it differs from animal communication. Now getting this into quickly, that is, animal communication, when we talk, they are extremely limited. Their communication is extremely limited. Why? Because they can only tell you that they're hungry, they can show you anger, or they get feared, or they can show love. So this is a limited communication that animals show. They have a closed system. In that closed system, nothing cannot be changed or added. Whereas human communication is just the opposite. There can be changes we can make, everything can be modified, and we can add something or the other, because our mind is that productive, right? So as our mind is productive, so humans, there is a development. Why we have today, we have different softwares and videos that did not exist earlier, right? Now we can also form a thousand of words and a complex structure of sentences. So whereas if you compare animal communication, it is not so. So we have different things. Now there is one notable point that I want to tell you, that human language has the ability of forming messages that can pertain future. हमें पता है for future, present and past, everything, right? And we can talk about our future sitting over here to any person far away, right? But whereas animals cannot. And this type of setting is multi-dimensional setting. And this is called as displacement, right? Now, moving on with the social behavior. Social behavior, why it is said social behavior? Why it is a characteristic of language? Because learning is possible through society. How does a child learn? He learns the language of atmosphere, to where he is around, to which society he belongs, right? A Japanese child, if he is brought to India, or a Chinese child, since childhood he is brought to India, so he will learn Indian things. He will, grab everything which we are doing. It doesn't mean that he will take things from Japan or Russia or China, right? So this is social behavior. Now quickly moving on to the next character, that is symbol system, productivity, interchangeability. Very first is symbol system. Symbol system, that means if you see I have given a symbols, smiley, and when a shocking and you cannot speak a word, or when you are sad or angry, right? So these are symbols only. We have different WhatsApp symbols to share our feelings. This is how we share our feelings. So language is also a symbol system. Very easy. Productivity, I already told you, human beings on the basis of his or her knowledge, अपनी knowledge के हिसाब से they can produce a sentence which has never been heard or formed. They have a different framework with different sentences they can come up, right? So उनके brain में कब क्या चल रहा है and what they can produce, we generally don't know. Even I can do, even you all can do. So it is a human nature, right? Now when we talk about the last, interchangeability, then when we communicate ideas, right? When we when we have an ability to interchange. How? When we are communicating, then a speaker can reciprocate as listener or vice versa. When someone is speaking and then he becomes a listener. So this is all about my lecture. This is a part of human being. Language is plays a major role in human being lives, and it is a part of human beings and cannot be taken away. Through this language we are growing, and if we see, we are growing from stone ages to different philosophy. Now we have different technologies, and now our science has developed to, I know it has developed two stars in moon you have seen. So it plays a vital role, and we should not forget that language is also important for art. We are art people, we love literature, so we are listening to this. So just love literature, and when you will love literature, you you know you can read and do anything in life. So all the best, and we'll continue with our next class where I'll tell you the theories of language. Good luck. Bye.